My name is Kathy Keck, and I'm the Deputy Director of Communications, and I'll be your MC today. So first and foremost, thank you for joining us. When 2020 started, we certainly hoped that we would be doing these meetings in person. We had great plans to invite you to the campus, show you around, but unfortunately, with the pandemic, that's just not a safe thing to do, and your health is important to us. So we appreciate you joining us virtually today. This meeting is the first in a series of meetings we're going to be hosting over the course of the next year to share our long-range plans, answer your questions, and to get feedback, particularly from all of you as neighbors. To get us started, we'd really love to know a little bit about you. As you can see on the screen, that's our Bear site near the aquatic park off 7th in West Berkeley. And what we'd like to do, we're going to give you a little poll. We'd like to know whether you live within 1 mile, 2 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles, or beyond 10 miles of our site. And if you're one of our neighboring businesses, is your business nearby? And how far is it? Wow, lots of great responses. And it looks like almost 70% of our audience is from right nearby, within a mile of our campus, which is wonderful because our goal today was to spend our time with our close by neighborhood. We have a little over 50, almost 60 people on the call so far today. And before we begin, I just want to share with you a little bit about how this meeting is going to be managed so that, the ground rules are out there, so to speak. We're recording this meeting largely because we want to capture your questions. They help educate us about what people are concerned or interested in. And importantly, we want to capture your feedback. We plan to cover a lot of information today. And we'll probably do that at a fairly rapid pace. But that's so that we can give a lot of time at the end to answer questions and hear your feedback. If you don't necessarily have a question, but you want to give feedback, please share that in the chat or in the Q&A feature. It's really helpful for us to hear what your thoughts are. And we want to be respectful of your time. We've asked for an hour and a half, which we know is a lot of your time. We'll make every effort to answer all the questions that we can, but if we run out of time, we are committed to responding to your questions directly with answers by end of day Friday. So with that, I'd like to tell you a little bit about just what we're going to cover today and my colleagues who are here today. So our goals are to tell you a little bit about Bear in Berkeley in case you're not familiar with us, a little bit about our new master plan for the site and our vision for the future, and to tell you a little bit about Bear's development agreement with the city of Berkeley. We have a number of colleagues here today to join us. Drew Johnston is the head of engineering for the Berkeley site. Jessica Hayes is the project manager for the master plan and facilitating that process, the permitting process with the city of Berkeley for the development agreement. And then Jennifer Cogley is the deputy director for community relations, and she will talk about the development agreement as well today. With that, I'm really honored to introduce Jens Vogel. He's the Senior Vice President and Global Head of Biotechnology at Bayer, and he is the head of the Bayer Berkeley site. Jens, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Cassie, and thanks to everyone out there for joining us today. And of course, a special thanks also to our city leaders who have joined. So Mayor Argin and Councilmember Davila and Deputy City Manager David White, thanks. I really wish as Cassie said, I could see you all in person in more of a physical town hall setting. But this is the new normal, and it's going to continue to be the new normal for a while. So let's together make the best of that. And first, let me start with telling you a little bit about me. So I rejoined Bayer in March, about really 2 weeks before we all had to shelter in place. So very interesting time to take over a global network and the Berkeley site. Um, but I've actually been with Bayer for 12 years before, from 2000 to 2012. In between, I led another large biotech manufacturing organization in Fremont in the South Bay. And I came to Berkeley really in the year 2000, and both my wife and I really fell in love with the community. And our kids were born in the area, went to public school there. When I moved to another biotech company here to the South Bay, eventually we actually decided to move, but we are absolutely planning to come back home, so to speak, to Berkeley once we are through this pandemic. And our plan is also to enroll our kids in Berkeley High School. So we are looking forward to that. Now, Bayer has been here in Berkeley, as most of you will know, for a long time. And many of us really live here, and we really feel and are a part of the community, and are really committed to the community. And so I'm very proud that we have programs in STEM education that basically include our work with the Berkeley Community Scholars and biotech partners that I also worked with a lot earlier in my career, and that is a key partner for us. Volunteerism is a big thing for our employees, whether it's really working in the food bank. My wife, for example, volunteers in the Alameda Food Bank. Many of our people volunteer, whether it's in the Hemophilia Foundation, helping teachers with hands-on science lessons, and so on. And of course, also environmental excellence is something that is really important for us at Bayer. And we actually have globally a goal to reach a net zero carbon footprint by 2030. But really, we are here to talk about Bayer in Berkeley and what we do here. And so let me tell you a little bit about that. The Berkeley site is really our key site for biopharmaceutical development and manufacturing. So we have about 1,000 people here in Berkeley. So that also makes us the largest private sector employer in Berkeley. And as many of you know, over many years, the key focus area really for our site has been medical innovation in the area of hemophilia. Let me tell you a bit about hemophilia. So many years ago, so about 15 years ago, so early in my career, I went to the World Federation of Hemophilia meeting at that time in Buenos Aires, I believe. And I met a number of patients that are suffering from hemophilia. So hemophilia is a disease, it's a rare disease where basically patients are lacking functioning blood coagulation factor VIII. So what that means is that actually if they cut themselves, they will not stop bleeding. So it's obviously a life-threatening. But one thing I learned from meeting with patients was really that you could really see people that have been living with hemophilia at the time for a long time, because if you or I are walking down a flight of stairs, basically, we all have very, very small tears when we do any kind of physical exercise in our joints, and which starts slight bleeds in our joints. But for most of us, these bleeds stop immediately. For hemophiliacs, these bleeds only stop when the blood pressure is basically, or sorry, the pressure from the tissue is actually equal to the blood pressure. So they have swelling of their joints, and ultimately that will destroy their joints. So a lot of hemophiliacs historically have been in wheelchairs early on, were not able to live an active life, and also had a very short lifespan. Now, that's where really biotech came in, and Bayer here in Berkeley was actually an innovator in bringing the first biotech-made therapeutic for hemophilia to patients. And what that does, I want to show you, and hopefully, yes, the slide is working. I want to introduce you to somebody. You can see him here on the slide. His name is Evan Kerstetter, and I had the great pleasure of meeting him recently when we were celebrating World Hemophilia Day. And Evan has been on our products made here in Berkeley for most of his life. And he is a wonderful person, lives a very active lifestyle. He's actually impressed me a lot. He's training to be a nurse. He's working in a hospital setting, which right now, in the middle of the pandemic, as you can imagine, is very challenging. And he, in his private life, he doesn't hold back. He is doing sports, everything. And that's what the power of these biotech therapeutics is. And that's actually the reason why myself and many of our colleagues here actually went into biotech to begin with. And so the therapies that are helping patients like Evan are now available in 50 countries around the globe, all made here, research developed and made here in Berkeley, California. So that's what makes us very proud. And you can see here a picture from actually the next one, Jennifer, from when we celebrated World Hemophilia Day. You can see really, I think every time when I look at the picture, I think it comes across that at our site, everyone from top management to really frontline operators is really, really proud and really, really driven by the fact that the medicines that we make are not only life-saving, but they really help people live a normal, healthy, happy life. And that's what really gets us to work every day. So we have, as I said, 3 hemophilia products that are made in Berkeley, but we have much bigger plans. So let's talk a bit about our future. So what we really want to do is we want to grow on our foundation, and that is really that we learned through developing and manufacturing these very, very complex biologics. We want to leverage everything we learned there to really invest in the next generation of therapies. And that is in particular new therapeutic modalities like cell and gene therapy. Cell and gene therapy, we believe, will really revolutionize medicine. And we have, I think, a slide on cell and gene therapy that can maybe help explain this a bit. But if that doesn't work, I don't see it right now. I'm not sure whether you can see it, but I can also just explain it. So in the case of cell therapies, for example, what we are trying to do is take cells, human cells, for example, immune cells, and then train them and help them to really fight cancer. So you probably heard about some revolutionary successes in cell therapy, patient response rates that are far above and beyond anything that historically has been achieved with small molecule drugs or chemical drugs, or even large molecule drugs like antibodies. These cell therapies, so, are very, very difficult to make. And that's exactly, again, where we come in. Factor VIII for hemophilia has been, until very recently, really the most complex and difficult to make biologic in the world. And everything we learned there, we now also want to apply to these new medicines. Beyond cell therapies, there are gene therapies, which also for the very first time, in many cases, will allow us to attempt a truly curative approach, where we not only let's say in certain diseases extending the lifespan or quality of life, but we can actually cure those diseases. Those are the things that we are working on, and we want to work on more right here in Berkeley. Again, this is something where we can use all our strengths. It's very innovative, but we firmly believe that innovation and diversity are intimately linked. And when you look at Berkeley, the Berkeley community, the San Francisco Bay Area, it's not a coincidence that here is really the birthplace of biotech. And when you look at the diversity that we have, and of course, that's also the diversity of our talent pool, when you bring people together from different cultural background, in any diversity in any shape or form, you get diversity of thought. And that means basically better solutions and real innovation. That's what we want to harness. That's why we think that Berkeley is one of the best places in the world, and for us, the place that we selected to really develop and innovate in this space. And finally, because again, we are right here in the heart of the biotech hub, #1 on the planet, we also really want to work and partner with other companies and with academia, because like I said earlier, our strength is really to take something that has been discovered in the lab, but it's very, very hard to make, and then develop the innovation around really what it takes to get these as a product to patients so that we can really serve the needs of the patients and help them. And that's something that we want to really also do in cooperation with other companies, and that's why we want to follow somewhat of an open innovation approach. So ultimately, our plan, and that's underlying the development plan of the site that you will see, the master plan. Ultimately, what we are trying to do is that we want to build on the foundation of development and manufacturing of hemophilia drugs, expand that, and turn the site into a true innovation hub for these new medicines against cancer, against cardiovascular disease, and also regenerative therapies, for example, to treat and combat Parkinson's disease. That's one of the key products also that we want to work on right here in Berkeley in the future. So in order to do all that, we need additional product development labs. We need new modular manufacturing facilities that give us more flexibility to shift between products, especially when you look at personalized medicines. And we need to basically set up the site in a way that really encourages people to collaborate, even more so than ever before. So that's what we are after. And to talk you a bit more through the details of the plan, I would like to turn over to Drew Johnson and Jessica Hayes from our engineering team.
Thanks, Jens. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Drew Johnson. I'm the head of engineering for the Berkeley site. And jumping right into it, I don't know if the slides are sharing or not, but they're about to get pretty interesting, so I hope that they're up there. No pressure, guys. So, like Jens said, so we have a long history of hemophilia manufacturing, and we are, and that is a core for us. It's also allowed us to build significant expertise and infrastructure around that biotech manufacturing process, which was an unbelievable asset. Now, also, as Jens mentioned, the industry and the Bayer itself is shifting a bit to more of a specialty medicine. So instead of a medicine that can serve a wide population with a broad condition, very patient-centric, condition-centric medicines. So what that means is that the volumes of medicine get smaller and the number of medicines goes up, which translates into a completely different type of infrastructure that we need to be able to support these patients. So we're going through that transformation now. We have some pictures to show us how that is. But when we think about the campus and the facilities that we need, in a traditional setting, from process development into the clinic, into a commercial manufacturing operation that is licensed for long-term manufacturing, that can take years, especially the transition from one to the other. The new medicines need to be able to do that faster. Like we said, the quantity is more and a number of them, and the quantity of product is less. So the facilities need to be able to transfer a product in onto a platform measured in months rather than years. So shifting that infrastructure is what you're going to see. And again, so from the Berkeley site, we have the expertise, we have the basic infrastructure. Now we need to convert our facilities. So what you'll see is a campus plan that is intended to maximize the site that we have. It'll, from a land use standpoint, bring all the labs together, as well as the clinical and the launch commercial manufacturing, all together on one site. Have all the capabilities we need to attract the talent that we need, and also be nice enough to make sure they are proud and they have all the tools that they need. We also want to be able to have healthy employees, right? So having a campus that's useful and engages and promotes wellness. But last and certainly not least, I probably should have led with this, we also want to integrate well with our community, right? So again, it comes back to a land use principle, but pulling our border back some to soften the edge of our site and integrate a bit better with our community is also a priority. So I'm going to turn it over to Jessica Hayes, and she's going to walk through some of the more detailed views.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for attending. I've worked at the Bayer Berkeley site for about 16 years, and I've been in manufacturing for the Factor 8 products as well as quality assurance. And it was a really exciting opportunity last fall to join Drew's engineering group and be a part of the master planning process for how we can reshape our location in coming years to meet the business needs that Yen has described so well. I was a Berkeley resident when I joined Bayer originally, and although I've been in Oakland for the last several years, I'm still only about 5 miles away from campus. I love the opportunity to be able to bike to work. And in addition to our fantastic location, I have to say the number one reason that's kept me at Bayer all of these years really is the people. We have an incredible community of dedicated, competent folks who show up for each other every day, year after year, and not just for each other, for our patient community. It's the caliber of people that I would want making medicine for my child, and it's just a really enjoyable community to be a part of. So without anything further there, I'll dive right into the master plan overview. So this might look a little familiar to all of you. We're hovering above 7th Street and Dwight Way, and you can see the San Francisco skyline far out in the distance. You've probably noticed we have a good amount of surface parking surrounding the current campus. And for a very expensive part of the world, it's probably not the optimal use of space. As Drew mentioned, we want to fit into the community and soften our edges a bit. We don't have a strong transition between our surrounding community and the campus, so we really want this to be an opportunity to improve that. Also noteworthy, not so much green space. We very much have had a history of a city grid style location, and we want to reshape that into a little bit more of a campus feel. So we could go to the next slide, and taking these opportunities for improvement in coming years. Just also for point of reference, that the lines that showed up there help identify the scope of the property that we're talking about. So we can go to the next slide. So when we kicked off the master planning process, we included some architects who specialize in biotech locations for different companies around the world. We included our employees and tried to get a sense of what's important to them. Another key piece in what we considered was how competitive of an employer can we be. We want, we have, not only do we have biotech competition in the Bay Area, but we just have tech competition in general. There's lots of different employment opportunities in the Bay Area for the types of jobs that we have at our site. And we want to be able to hire top talent and retain them. So several different factors going into it. You'll notice we're still looking at the same vantage point from the current photo that we just shared. We want to make a pedestrian priority mainly through the middle of our campus. increase the green space and provide more opportunities for employees to have collaboration. Our roots are in manufacturing, and our future is going to be in manufacturing. We're not losing that. We're going to be incorporating more spaces for the clinical development side of things so that we can manufacture the clinical medicine through clinical trials. And so we need to be able to have the folks who are experts in the core manufacturing pieces of our campus be able to talk readily to the folks working on the development side of things. So running kind of in parallel with Aquatic Park, where the cursor's directing your eye, we're running from north to south there. That's really our core historical manufacturing. We have larger buildings on the north and south side that anchor that manufacturing corridor. And those are going to be around for years to come. But we do have an opportunity to build some future modalities and modernize buildings. And we've chosen to put those logistically in a place that makes sense for the people movement and the materials movement for material that we need in those buildings. We want to consolidate the building heights so that back in that core area where you see the 6 footprints, 6 core buildings, keep the taller buildings consolidated to that part of campus. We want to integrate some underground parking where we can towards the perimeter of campus. So in future buildings, we're not looking at the less than pleasant view of surface parking. And on the 7th Street corridor, we envision an expanded plaza that would be much more green than we see today. This would enable employees as well as the surrounding neighbors to have a more pleasant environment to take a stroll, maybe have a coffee, a pedestrian area where we can move more readily down 7th Street. We have an existing 100-foot tall building on the south of campus. So just as a point of reference, if you have walked by and seen building heights, we certainly won't be taller than what we have already. And we will be providing plenty of parking as well. So the structure that you see on the corner of 7th and Dwight, that would be a longer term, later stage. We're designing this for a full 30-year build out. So that would be one of the last things we hope we would need. Ideally, we'll have transportation demand programs, shuttles, alternate ways to needing cars where we might not need that, but we have the space for it, and we will ensure appropriate parking for all of our employees. So it's not all going to happen at once. We're designing for 30 years, and none of the actual designs have been done for any one of these buildings. This is conceptual rendering, and it's an organization of where we would like to ideally place things. This color-coded slide gives you a little bit of an impression of the phasing that we envision. So the yellow would be the more near-term buildings within the next 10 years or so. And then beyond that, for the following 20 years after that, are the buildings in blue. So with that, I will hand it over to Jennifer to talk a little bit more about the development agreement.
Oh.
Jennifer, you're on mute.
It might be a double mute. We cannot hear you, unfortunately.
Does this work?
Yeah, there we go.
Woo! Okay, I'm going to talk really loud, which those of you who know me know I can be very loud. My name's Jennifer Cogley, and I'm the Deputy Director of Community Relations here. I've been with the company about 4 years. Prior to that, I worked in economic development for the city of Berkeley and did a number of environmental projects together with Bear. and felt really comfortable about going over to the private sector because so many values at the Bear site are shared with the Berkeley community at large. One of the things that really underpins what we've done since 1992 is our development agreement. And that is a legal land use agreement that is designed for large sites that have a planned, phased implementation over time. And what we do in that case is front load the approval process for the long term. And then every time we need to build a building, we go back and look at that rule book, follow that rule book, and build according to that plan. And what that does for Bayer is it means that we can attract investment from our central headquarters. Bayer is a global company, and we're in competition with other Bayer sites for investment. And so one of the key things that's happened here in Berkeley is this development agreement has made it easier for us to land money.
Jennifer, you accidentally went on mute again somehow. Can you unmute yourself?
I am not muted. I am not muted. Not muted.
Now it works.
Okay. So the thing that I want to say next is that there are benefits to the city. So beyond our own agreements, the development agreement brings benefit to the city. That means there's stable employer. We're the largest private employer in Berkeley with about 1,000 people. We've been a stable employer for the most part over those many years. And we're a major taxpayer. I'll look up the numbers, but I want to say definitely in the millions of dollars per year in property taxes. And then we also pay sales and income taxes. So then on top of that, the development agreement lays out areas where we pay over and above those elements that are just built into a functioning society. Some of those programs are Biotech Partners, which is a career technical training program for high school students. We've paid into transportation infrastructure, like a bike lane in the area. We also have a shuttle that connects our employees and, quite frankly, community members, back when there was travel by BART, a shuttle that brings people from BART to our site, and we share that shuttle with another biotech company in the West Berkeley. Some other areas where we have invested through the development agreement over the years has been affordable housing and support for childcare facilities and a number of other community programs. In all, over the last 28 years or so, we have invested more than $37 million when you adjust the dollars for inflation. So that's a little look at what the development agreement is. And I'm going to hand it back to Drew, whose sound I hope is much better than mine, to talk about really a summary of what we're looking for as we extend our existing, as we seek to extend our existing development agreement into the next term. Take it away, Drew.
Thanks, Jennifer. Smile if I'm not on mute. Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, so a very simplified and kind of view of the highlights. So it's wild to think that 1992 is when the current development agreement was signed. And in 1992, biotech was different than it is today. And we've talked a lot about the evolution that it's going through. So it is a perfect time for Bayer to extend its commitment to the community in a long-term way, and also understand what the community needs from Bayer long-term and have a mutual agreement. So it's a 30-year extension. Interestingly, we're not asking for any more square feet. We're just using them a bit different, right? And also making sure that those building square feet are specifically targeted to the things we need to do. Like Jen said, I'll add about 1,000 jobs over the course of the, if we have the success we want for the patients, there's a lot of jobs to do. It is one agreement for the entire site. Currently, we have two. The current development agreement runs between Dwight and Carlton, and then Carlton to Grayson is actually covered under a master use permit. We would like to have it all under one DA. So that's what we're proposing. We're going to add 6 acres of open space. Now, some of that is outside our fence, so they're available to the public, and some of that is inside the fence to make us more of a campus and integrate better. And why we keep highlighting that is we've talked a lot about developing our processes and our products, doing clinical manufacturing, and then doing our commercial launch. Those are very different jobs. They're all biotech, but getting a product off the bench and into the clinic and then launching it commercially, those are 2 different groups. Those 2 groups seeing each other and working together, there's a lot of power there, and that's extremely important. So one of the things we've done with the campus plan, like Jessica was talking about, is making sure that those 2 groups have everything they need, but they also run into each other. So as we move from stage to stage, the understanding is all already high and the speed comes, and that is the power. And if you think about it, if you're a patient waiting for one of these medicines, and there's a company with a campus that can do this efficiently, and you can wait a lot less time, it's extremely important. So that's why we keep going after this campus and having a connected. Also, a simplified building. Both our current agreement is great, and the city understands it well, we understand it well, but we had to work pretty hard to understand all of the requirements. So this agreement will be simplified, and so there's just 4 simplified building zones that we can manage together with the city. And importantly, for especially the folks who love the view, we're protecting all viewer corridors. So the way you see through our campus today will be the way you see through it in the future. That's also very, very important. And as also I would like to add that, as Jessica mentioned, we're pulling back off the streets a bit, which will actually allow, as you come down the street, to see more sky than it would have if we would have built to our current agreement. So I think it's good all the way around. So say questions before the end, but thanks. So I think I hand it back to Jennifer. I'll let you know if you can't hear
me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. Actually, I jumped the gun because this is Jessica's role right here, because she's going to talk about the application we submitted.
Sure, the first couple items. So having spent the time to develop the master plan, we rolled right into using that information to help define the scope of work that we wanted to include in our application to the City of Berkeley for the development agreement. So that application was submitted in late March, and the city sent out a request for proposal from environmental consultants, and a consultant has been chosen. So now we're rapidly rolling into collecting all of the information for studies for the environmental impact report. Things like air, noise, traffic, aesthetic studies, but ultimately the full list of everything to be evaluated will be a city and public process.
Excellent. What we're also doing is engaging with the community. So this is our first public meeting. You got to see us with all the humanity. The humanity is showing. Hopefully we'll be a little bit smoother by the time we get to our October 22nd and our October 27th. Those are our next 2 community meetings. And on the next slide, we're going to show you where you can sign up for those. We'll have various times and ways of communicating to you, but just as importantly, we want to hear from you. And that's why this Bear community engagement is all the way through the time, because we want to make sure that we're maintaining a conversation with you over all of this period. Now, from a process standpoint, there are going to be public meetings with the Zoning Adjustments Board in November, and also with the Planning Commission and also with the Design Review Committee. Those will happen in several months in November and December. Then once there is a draft or close to final environmental review, that gets published. We get feedback from the community and from specialists in the field. All of the studies that Jessica is, she's not conducting them, she's really doing traffic management, making sure that we're getting information to the people who need it. These environmental studies are then peer reviewed by specialists in those fields. And then that's published really next summer. And once that is published, then we take the whole agreement to the Planning Commission for their vote, and then a vote from council, and then they have to vote on it a second time, and then we would have an extended an amended development agreement if all goes well. So that is the process that we're going through, and we are here on this calendar. And then moving forward, one of the things that we want to do is stay engaged. So on the screen, you'll see some of the places you can go. We have a website, bear.com/Berkeley is a page just dedicated to communicating with you guys about what we're doing. Our future meetings will be visible at berkeleybear.eventbrite.com, where you can sign up. And you can email us day or night at communications.berkeley@bear.com. As I mentioned, our next two community meetings are on October 22nd and October 27th. And quite frankly, we did not, we send out mailers to everyone in the Southwest Berkeley area. We used partners to promote this event, but we didn't make it public because we really did want to make sure that we had a space that was just for our neighbors. These upcoming meetings we will promote much more broadly because we want to make sure that we engage with everyone in the community. But as our neighbors, we wanted to start with you. So with that, I believe we are at questions and answers. Am I not right, Kathy?
You are correct, Jennifer. Thanks so much for your help, and for all of my colleagues for presenting such great information. So I've seen several questions come through in the Q&A channel. I've also seen several come through in the chat. We're going to try and tackle as many of these as we can. And with that, I'm going to start with the first question. Drew, can you make sure your sound is on?
On it.
And we are going to ask you, how safe is the Bear Berkeley campus from the railroad that runs adjacent to the property?
Oh, that's an excellent question. So yes, so there's a few things we have going for us. Yes, the train runs about 50 feet from our fence and about maybe 100 feet from our facilities. All of our facilities are up about 10 feet from the tracks. So that's a little bit of buffer, but what the real protection is that it's a low speed zone and it's straight. So the traffic that runs through there from a train, it's not a giant risk. As a matter of fact, for many, many years, we monitored vibration, and we don't really see a risk there either. So it is something we obviously keep an eye on, and we have contact with the railroads and also the other utilities that are out there pretty regularly to make sure everything is well maintained. So, hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Drew. And I just want to mention that question came from Carrie Dovzak. I might have her name wrong, who's from one of our fire district CERT teams.
Nice.
Jens, if you can make sure your microphone is on. The next question is from Jobs with Justice, San Francisco. And they're asking, what are Bear's global profits? And of that, what do you estimate come from your sale of hemophilia products?
Okay, so globally, as you know, we are a very large corporation with something like 120,000 employees worldwide. Our annual report is public. I actually would also have to look it up now to be able to quote you an exact figure. And because quite frankly, over the last couple of months, we had a lot on our mind. And so, but the number is public. We can also get back to you on that. Just maybe one comment in general terms, I can tell you without being able to quote you the exact number right now, that our profit margins overall are perhaps a bit lower than some other companies. So I do remember that in 19, I think we had an EBITDA margin of about 24%. If you can compare that to something like Apple with 65%, we are not in the same ballpark as some other industries. We are, of course, very R&D heavy. So we are reinvesting a lot into R&D. You know, the other aspect, of course, is that when you look at hemophilia, these are, as I outlined earlier, the most difficult to make biologics, much more difficult to make than, for example, monoclonal antibodies. So the margin on these drugs naturally would be a bit lower. I also would have to look up, and I can get back to you on seeing what we actually do publish with regards to our specific numbers on the Berkeley hemophilia portfolio.
Thank you, Jens. Jens and Drew, I'm going to combine a couple of other questions also asked by Jobs with Justice, because I think there's a couple of sides to those questions. They're asking first about, are the 1,000 jobs permanent jobs or construction jobs? And of the permanent jobs, how many are entry level? So I think, Drew, we never really talked about construction job generation. So maybe you can give some general guidance on construction jobs. And then Jens, can you talk about the potential 1,000 additional jobs?
Sure.
Thanks.
Sure, maybe also I'll start with construction. So the current project we're doing, it's our first launch facility. Right now we have about 130 construction workers on site every day. However, that's about our peak labor force. I want to add that over the course of the project, there's about 550 construction jobs that come to Berkeley, just that they're not all here at one time. So if you I wouldn't want to do the math, but it's significant as the build out over 30 years. You know, it's permanent.
Jens, do you want to talk a little bit about the biotech jobs?
Absolutely. I mean, just to add, you know, when you look at what we are trying to do, is think, you know, I tried to show you that we are really intending to expand in the development space, but also in the manufacturing space. So it's really a wide range of jobs. It's really everything from scientists, development scientists, to shop floor operators on all levels. Again, you know, this is biotech manufacturing, and we made a conscious decision not to go like some other companies also from California have done, that went to Singapore or some other countries, because we believe we want to have development and manufacturing together here in Berkeley. And so therefore the 1,000 jobs that we are trying to create are going to span the entire gamut of what you have in manufacturing and development facilities.
Super. So Jens, I think you and Jennifer, if you can both make sure you're not muted, probably have some thoughts on the next question from Tony Mester, which is, will biotech partners be continued?
Oh, absolutely. Should I take the first step at that? You know, the people here on the call, I think, know that I'm very passionate about biotech partners. And this goes way back when I started early on in my career here at Bayer in 2000, and I actually mentored several biotech partner students myself, which was an incredibly rewarding experience. You know, some of these you know, really young talents that came from you know, sort of an you know, in one case at least, sort of difficult living conditions, nobody in the family that has ever gone to college, and mentoring someone like that, showing this young person a path and opportunities in biotech, I felt that was extremely powerful, and like I said, very rewarding and very, very important part of my life at the time. And so we definitely will continue. Many of us feel exactly the same way. It's an excellent program, and as a matter of fact, we are thinking about how can we work together with biotech partner to expand and build on the successes that we already had together.
Jennifer, anything to add about STEM and biotech partners?
Yes, STEM is something that is near and dear to the heart of Bayer. It's where we invest quite a bit, either through the development agreement with efforts like biotech partners that has graduated about 3,000 young people over the course of the program. And since I've been here, their graduation rate into 98% of their students go on to school after high school, which is very high. And they do a great job of reaching underserved students. So they have a high representation from Hispanic, African American, low income, and they have a pretty much 50-50 gender balance. We've got tremendous partnership with them. I get to talk to their staff all the time. And one of the things I'm proud of is that we managed to still have an internship via Zoom, which we planned in all of, 3 to 6 weeks. So it was quite a push, and we're continuing to work with them. One of the things is that we're looking to hear what is important to the community going forward as it relates to STEM education. We're passionate about the things that we're familiar with, and we're looking forward to hearing about some of the interests and needs from the community through this whole engagement process. So definitely reach out to me if you have ideas about how Bayer can play a role in building the next generation of a diverse biotech innovation community.
Thanks, Jennifer. So I'm gonna share a comment that came in through the Q&A channel, and then also ask a question that came into the chat because they're sort of related. So Lars from the Office of the Mayor shared with us that he's very happy. Thank you for holding this meeting. As folks should know, we've let the city know that we're having these meetings, and it's an important part of our ongoing relationship with them. But Jennifer, there's a question in the chat that is the development agreement itself available for public review? That came from Claudia, whose last name I don't want to make a mess of. Can you do us a favor and can you talk to the fact that it's available and then provide a slide before we end that shows where people can click and get that URL?
Absolutely. It should be on the City of Berkeley's website, and while we're talking, I'll make sure we have a link to it, and I'll add that link to our website. We're so excited to have a web page of our own. Does that answer your question? It's about a 400-page document, and it includes quite a bit of information about how we are to build our buildings, and stipulates in quite a bit of detail the education programs that we run, how they are to be run. And one of the things I'm interested in is making sure as we go into the future that we create a system that allows us to flex as the circumstances around us flex. I'd love for you guys to read the agreement, and I'll make sure we have a link to it.
Thank you. So then I'm going to go to the next question that's come through the Q&A channel. And Jessica, I think this one is for you. And there may be a couple follow-ons on a related note. The existing green space, I believe they say, they mean at our campus, is uninviting and hardly anybody ever uses it. Can that green space be redone to make it more inviting to the community? And will the new green space be more park-like and inviting? I don't know if we need to pull up one of the images. Jennifer, can you pull up the image of the site map to support Jessica?
Just a moment, yes.
Thank you.
So I'm sort of assuming that if it's a non-employee making the observation about exterior space that's usable by the community now, it would be the Grayson at 7th Street area where we have more of a paved area. That's true that there's not so much usable green space there. And we've noticed that it does get some nice use for some exercise, and there's a nice art installation. The idea is kind of similar moving north along 7th Street, but the intention would be to have much more green landscaped usable space as opposed to the hardscape that exists at Grayson and 7th.
Thank you. I thought I had another green space question, but not yet. Drew, I'm thinking you might know the answer to this question best. What percentage of our employees are unionized, and what percentage do you believe might be unionized in the future? I know that we know the answer to the first one, but probably not the second.
So if we're talking just percentages, roughly 30% today. As the site grows, it's a little hard to predict, but so I'm sorry. It's just hard to predict. So.
Thank you. Then the next question, Jessica, I believe will be for you, which is how can we ensure, or it might be for Drew, how can we ensure that any construction that can include underground parking won't affect the groundwater and runoff into the aquatic park?
It's a great question. One of the benefits of how we're going to develop the site is stormwater management. So the groundwater is it's an interesting topic in Berkeley because so much of West Berkeley is landfill. Some of it's virgin, so there's no groundwater there, and 10 feet over is landfill, and there's quite a bit of water there. The Phil's Aquatic Park, though, is largely the runoff from West Berkeley, probably starting somewhere near Shattuck. And don't quote me on that. I just know that it runs through our site and there's a lot of it. But right today, we are nearly 90% paved. In the future, we will have 12 acres, up to 12 acres of green space, including the park, that will allow all that rainwater to filter in. So long story short, our impact is going to go way down as far as that goes.
And I think that'll also be a consideration as part of the environmental impact report, as something that will get examined. And I think I might have also owed you that it's about 1.5 acres of cumulative space along 7th Street that we're envisioning available for employees and neighbors.
Thank you. Jens,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to send the next question your way because it's about what kind of product development work we do on campus. And it's from Claudia, and she's asking if we employ animal testing on site, what species are involved?
So we are really a development site, not a research site. And as far as I know, we don't employ any animal testing on site.
Thanks, Jens. Drew and Jessica, there's a question that's come in regarding heights. The individual has indicated, and they're just identified as admin, or I'd say their name. The existing height limit is 75 feet. You are proposing 80 feet or higher, question mark. Buildings, why? Since mechanical penthouses add height to the top of buildings, what will the actual height of the tallest buildings from the ground to the top of the penthouse be?
So maybe I'll take a stab, and then Jennifer, you can fill in any details that I missed. So we're asking for about 15 feet of extra roof height along 7th Street, but pushing the buildings back about 60 feet. The penthouse could be as tall as 10 feet, so you're probably talking as high as 70 feet with the penthouse, but that's not a foregone conclusion that we would need one. In the center of the site, where we're building our launch infrastructure, those facilities could get up to about 80 feet tall, top of roof. If there's a penthouse, they could get to be 90. If anybody's familiar with the Colgate structure, which is it's the tallest facility we have on site. It sits on the south end of our campus. That building is 100 feet tall. So nothing would be as tall as that, likely not nearly as tall as that.
There's just a minor adjustment maybe in the assumption made by the questionnaire. We do have existing 80 feet in the development agreement already. It's not capped at 75. So the current location, now that we have the image, which is helpful, behind the 65-foot label on the corner of 7th and Dwight, right behind there, we have a current allowance for up to 80 feet. So by relocating it at the western edge of campus, it helps with that pedestrian priority through and helps give us the campus feel, so it's not truncating and having the large height closer to 7th Street.
Thanks, Jessica. Okay, I'm going to pop over into some of the questions that are in the chat and not in the Q&A. Those who've put questions in the Q&A, don't worry, I'm going to come back to those, but I'm going to go to some of the ones in the chat. There's a message from Kelly Hemargren, who is asking, and I think, Drew, I'm going to hand this one to you. How much sea level rise can be tolerated before these buildings have water lapping at the Bayer campus?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks for that. So I can offer a couple things. Our environmental impact report will study this first and foremost, but I can also add that the finished floor level of our facilities run from about 22 feet up to about 28, depending where they are on site, how far away they are from the bay. And most of our streets are right at 20 feet. So I guess the answer would be 20 feet.
Great. And then from Carrie, Jessica, I'm going to send this question your way. Carrie loves our solar energy parking lot. Are there any plans to increase solar energy use on site?
We're definitely considering making future buildings enabled for solar. And as Jens kicked off the intro, explained that Bayer has very ambitious climate action goals to be carbon neutral by 2030. We have to think about these things and take them seriously.
Great.
Maybe I can add on to that. The intent is our new infrastructure has a light touch. So it is more efficient, uses less resource, and then any local production that makes sense included in those facilities. That technology is evolving fast, and Bayer has never been afraid of that. So again, we can't be the first, but we certainly don't have to be the last. So it's definitely part of our intentions.
Drew, why don't you keep your microphone on? The next question is from Calvin, and he wants to know, what are the current rules for Bayer purchasing more land?
The rules?
Rules.
Well, the rules are just the market. We are in a very luxurious place where we have plenty of property to build everything that we need for the next foreseen 30 years. So we don't need more land in Berkeley. Just leave it there. But the rules are just general. It's the same rules as anybody else who wants to buy land in Berkeley.
Thanks, Drew. I want to acknowledge that we've gotten some comments in the chat. We'll definitely record those comments and consider those. Thank you for those who are putting comments in, even if they're not questions. There's a question from Kelly, I believe, asking more about energy. So Drew and Jessica, what is being done to make the structures zero net energy minimally, all electric and no natural gas?
So maybe I can start with that. So we have several types of facilities on site. And our manufacturing is obviously our most intense infrastructure, and it lightens up as we get to warehouse. So where it is appropriate, using electrical infrastructure to heat and cool and help makes sense, and we will do that. In other parts of our campus, it gets a bit tougher just because the energy usage and the equipment available in electric mode is worse for overall energy consumption. So we'll always pick the best technology. And being net zero, again, Bear has a climate goal of being zero carbon by 2030. So it's an aggressive target that we're working on.
Thanks, Drew. Next, there's a question from Reed, Jessica, about the pedestrian area, and asking, is there a plan for a public pedestrian access or pass through of the campus, say north to south at 5th?
Unfortunately, no. We're in a highly regulated industry. Not only do we have a lot of local, statewide, and federal laws to comply with for protecting the security of our campus, but we also have the FDA in our own country, as well as health authorities around the world who expect certain types of security for the locations where their products are made. So unfortunately, we can't open up that part of the campus, but we are definitely trying to incorporate ways where there might be sections closer to the perimeter where we could potentially adjust the way we've always done things and have certain sections at certain times available to neighbors and community. I noticed a comment about community use space, and that was definitely something that came up in the master planning was could we have spaces like that potentially could be usable for non-Bayer employees.
Super. Again, Jessica, I think for you and possibly also for Jennifer, Aaron asks, how will the community help shape the scoping of the EIR? So a little bit about that process probably would be helpful.
Sure, the city will release a notice of preparation that will give the public an opportunity to attend a scoping meeting. So I think our website will stay updated with the dates for those items. It'll probably be late October moving into November, roughly.
Yeah, I'll chime in here. The meetings that I outlined earlier, so that's zoning adjustments board, design review, and the third one is escaping me. Planning Commission, excuse me, thank you. Planning Commission. Those three are public meetings and serve as the scoping meetings. So those are great places if you have thoughts about what should be included in the EIR. That's the process that the city has set up for that kind of information to share. You're certainly welcome to chat it to us here, but the important place to do it is with the city of Berkeley, who's managing this process.
Thanks, Jennifer. And Jennifer, why don't you stay unmuted, because there's a question from Adolfo about what can the community expect as input for the community benefits and especially for the local District 2 community?
So there is going to be a process for talking about community benefits. My direction right now is to talk to David White. He's the deputy city manager, and he is responsible in collaboration with planning and the city manager to design that process. The other thing is really, we know that what was decided in 1992 was what was important to the community at that point. And it's important for us to know what the priorities are. We're all aware of the deep need across our region right now. There was deep need before we fell into our current economic crisis with COVID. Even under economic expansion, there was quite a bit of, and still is, economic hardship that people are living through. So we understand there's a huge need. And what we think is really important is for the community to prioritize the issues that are most important to them so that Bear can be a partner in playing a role in addressing some of these challenges.
Thanks. And just continue on for a minute, Jennifer.
Okay.
Will Bear consider offering Black, Latinx, and other underserved youth communities in West Berkeley neighborhoods specific benefits such as college scholarships or other benefits to improve equity?
That sounds like a great topic to bring to David White. He is organizing the negotiation process. Something to note that on our philanthropic side, we've been working with Berkeley Community Scholars to support their programs to help young people from Berkeley High use community college as their jumping off point to go into bachelor degrees. So it's an issue that's near and dear to our hearts, and we'd love to engage with you on what might be possible. The other thing I want to say is that Bear is, like most institutions, grappling with the extent, the effectiveness of our own diversity and inclusion programs. Like everyone, we can be doing better, and we're looking internally about how to do that. And I think over the course of the next years, we hope to be doing even better than we are now. It was interesting, I was just looking at a statistic, and our African-American employee numbers on the site pretty much mirror the African-American population in Berkeley. And our site is one of the most diverse sites in terms of our ethnic makeup across the population in all of the US. We're pretty proud of what we've done so far, and we're always looking to do more.
Thanks, Jennifer. Jens, I'm going to go back to you on jobs. Since the site does both development and manufacturing, can you speak to the types of jobs, and I know Drew's going to want to weigh in here too, the range of degrees required, the skill sets, what kind of career growth opportunities exist for a Bear employee?
No, absolutely. I think again, since we are definitely going to be and remain and expand as a manufacturing site, this is something where you have really a variety of skill sets and backgrounds and educational levels employed. So we, of course, going forward, we will hire PhD scientists, but we will hire people from, again, different educational backgrounds at different levels, and then also train them and develop them further in various roles across the organization. So that's certainly something, again, that maybe differentiates us to, compared to some other companies that decided to sort of offshore their manufacturing operations. And we really believe that we all gain if we have both development and manufacturing at the same site, and therefore provide a wide variety of jobs.
Drew, do you want to add anything about jobs?
Yeah, sure. So being responsible for engineering, I can specifically talk for myself, but my team is made up of highly skilled unionized craftsmen that do all of our maintenance and manage our spare parts and keep the site running, as well as the people who operate our utilities, to full engineering staffs, to kind of everything. So when you look at educational level, if it's official educational level, high school all the way through PhD. If you look at a training level, the training that our technicians get to maintain our site at a high level, as well as the on-the-job for everybody else. There is really something there for everyone. So again, the unionized labor force is incredibly important and provides a huge service to site, and our engineering labor force the same. So there's really kind of a job for everybody.
So let's see. Wow, we're down to the last 10 minutes. There are still a lot of questions, and I feel badly because I don't want to encroach on everyone's evening. So I'm gonna put the
Maybe
team on the phone on the spot. Yep.
maybe Cassie, if I can, I mean, there are a lot of questions here. Maybe I can just jump in. One stuck out here to me from, and maybe, I don't know, Cassie, can you switch to speaker view so that
Yes.
people can see me? Thanks. So I think this one question here from Job Swiss Justice, as biotech technologies emerge, regulatory frameworks can lag behind. What novel technologies do you plan to employ on site? What are the regulations that govern them, and how much transparency can you provide so that the community can assess safety and risk? So generally, just that you know, we are very transparent with regards to the technologies that we employ, and we engage and openly share and discuss also with academic partners and the general public, and we also publish a lot of the innovation that we do. Our industry is really regulated now, and also what we do in the future, mostly by FDA. So both CBER and CEDAR actually weigh in, and it's certainly the most heavily regulated industry I think there is. And CBER and CEDAR are really very much on top also on some of the newer innovations. To give you one example, I mentioned cell therapy. So one of the things that we are very excited about and that we want to bring to Berkeley is induced pluripotent stem cells. So this is really something where we have a lot of the product innovation coming from our Blue Rock subsidiary, which is a very innovative biotech company that is part of the Bayer Group. And this is actually research, based on the research of several Nobel laureates. And it's basically based on the discovery that you can take skin cells, as an example, from a healthy donor, and can then basically turn them into stem cells that can then differentiate in a bioreactor into, for example, healthy human neurons that you can then use to transplant into a Parkinson's patient to hopefully cure his disease. Or you can differentiate them into healthy human heart cells to basically attempt to repair a damaged heart. And there are numerous other applications of that technology. So that's the kind of really groundbreaking medical innovation that we ultimately want to bring to Berkeley, and then leverage our development and manufacturing know-how, build new ways of how we can actually then manufacture these products and make them widely available to patients globally.
Okay, I'm going to do two more questions that we have from the Q&A area. And then I'm going to suggest, Jens, that we wrap up as planned to fulfill our commitment to the community to end by 7:30. But I have some things I'll say about how we're going to follow up once we're done with these last two questions. Drew, are we planning to reuse the old large Colgate building, the 100-foot building?
If I get my way, yes. So there's actually three facilities down there. Two low roof facilities that kind of bump up against 7th, and then the high roof facility, which is the old Colgate plant. The two low roof facilities will likely be removed as time goes on and space requirements require. But the Colgate facility, yes, that would be, that's in the master plan, we're showing it as an administration center where we could have all of our office space. So.
Super. And then Jennifer and Jens, a couple of questions along the lines of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And these are from Sherry Smith. So do we have the ability to work on our DEI initiatives? Having been working with the Berkeley lab, they were asked to postpone any efforts. How are we taking leadership and supporting efforts on Black Lives Matters and other anti-racist organizations or dealing with racial inequality. And then also, given the gentrification of Berkeley, how are we making an effort to reach out to marginalized communities to give them a fighting chance on education and getting into biotech?
Jens, do you want to go first?
Absolutely, I'd love to, and then but please also chime in. So I'm, a lot of us, and myself included, are really passionate about this topic. I think we all saw again and again and again the horrible racial injustice, and I think many of us feel compelled to really do something about that and help drive change. And certainly, when you look at what we did with Bayer, various different things. First of all, this is something that's really important to us. Is really since we have a lot of African American employees as part of our Bayer community in Berkeley. We really started engaging into a dialogue. So I think that's where it starts, and really to listen. But we want to do much more than that, and we're really looking at tangible actions that we can take. One of the things, again, how for me that starts is really how do we broaden the talent pool, right? How do we create more equality, equal opportunities, truly? And I think you have to start early. I do think you have to start with things like STEM education. You do have to start with things like biotech partners and other programs. You do have to start with again, perhaps mentorship programs that we also want to look at. Again, I mentioned earlier that we want to see how we can expand our activities, because I personally had an experience where a young person came to me after a talk that I gave, in that case in the South Bay, but it's the same concept applies. And the person was actually from Richmond, Iron Triangle, not a good neighborhood, and wanted some advice. And so just, mentoring people is something that can make a huge difference. So there's a variety of ways, and what we are looking towards is also partnering with the local community to, again, expand what we can do together to really make change happen.
Thank you. So Jens, before I ask you, Jennifer, did you have anything else to say on DEI before I go there? Sorry, I meant to ask.
That's all right. I think what I want to say is how thankful I am for the conversation that's happening nationally. I think the environment that we're in now has given people of conscience who may have hung back a little bit in their leadership. The urgency now is felt throughout the organization at every level of management. And I have been really impressed with the Bayer organization's work. We're a cautious group of people, and so we don't say things until we're really sure that we can deliver on them. So if you hear things that sound a little vague from us, it's because we don't want to say something until we know we can actually deliver on it. What I do know is that what makes things happen is people having deep conversations and listening intently to one another in a safe space. And I see that that kind of conversation is happening within Berkeley, within the Berkeley Bayer organization. We're also mindful that we don't want to take a big public stance on things while we're still getting our own house in order. We really want to make sure that we're being the very best that we can be internally before we make big public pronouncements, because we think that's the right way to approach the issue. That's what I wanted to say on that. And so I want to say I feel deep gratitude personally for the people who have stepped up and voiced their concerns in the streets, because companies like Bayer are moved by that kind of action.
Thanks, Jennifer. So we have a minute to go. We're going to end up going a couple overs because I want Jens to wrap up, but I do want to say we had several questions about whether this recording and presentation will be made available. Yes, it will. We'll find a way to post the recording onto our website that Jennifer shared with you before, and we'll put that URL in the chat again. And with that, Jens, can you wrap up for us?
Absolutely, Cassie. First of all, let me thank you all for your time. We really want to continue to be part of this community and to bring really medical innovation and breakthroughs here, right, to Berkeley. But you know, this is really today is really part of an ongoing conversation, and we hope that you share our excitement. I hope that you saw how passionate we are about what we do and the future that we want to build together. And we really look forward to learning more and listening more and learning more from you what your priorities are. So please stay in touch. You know, and I think we had a slide really that also showed our information with regards to website and also a way to email us to sign up for email updates for upcoming meetings and other opportunities, so how we can engage. And there it is. So with that, again, thank you all very, very much for attending and your questions and your thoughts. And I'm really looking forward to continuing this dialogue. Thank you, and have a wonderful night, and please stay safe.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.